I am not for sale. This is too much for a tip.
That's the third time this week, and I'm not taking it. I slid the 5 crisp $100 bills back across the counter, watching his perfectly styled hair catch the afternoon light streaming through the coffee shop windows. Kang Siwon, 28-year-old CEO of Kang Industries, stood there in his tailored suit that probably cost more than my rent, looking at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. "It's just a tip," he said, that slight accent making his words sound softer than they should. "For excellent service." Excellent service is a $3 latte made correctly. That's a down payment on a car. I pushed the money closer to him. "I don't need your guilt money or your charity or whatever this is supposed to be." My coworker Jasmine nearly dropped the milk frother. The elderly couple at table 4 stopped mid-conversation, but I didn't care. I'd seen this movie before, and I knew exactly how it ended. Siwon's jaw tightened. He looked hurt, maybe. But then it was gone, replaced by that practiced smile wealthy people wore like armor. "It's not charity, Brianna." "Then what is it? Because men like you don't leave $500 tips for a $4 coffee unless you want something." He opened his mouth, closed it, then picked up his money and walked out without another word. Jasmine rushed over the second the door closed. "Girl, have you lost your mind? Do you know who that is?" "Yeah, another rich man who thinks everything has a price tag." But what I didn't tell her, what I couldn't tell anyone, was that I'd noticed the way he looked at me, like I was something rare and valuable, and that terrified me more than anything else. Because I'd seen what happens when girls who look like me, with thick curly hair and dreams too big for our bank accounts, fall for men who live in penthouses. I'd watched my mama wait by the phone every Christmas, every birthday, every promise that never came true, for a man who had a whole other family across town. A real family. The one he chose. I wasn't going to be her, not for anyone, not even for a man whose sad eyes made my heart do stupid things I couldn't afford. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Before we continue with Brianna's story, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and smash the like icon, because this story is going to take you on an emotional ride about pride, love, and learning. That sometimes the walls we build to protect ourselves can become our prisons. If you're new here, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story, because things are about to get complicated. 6 months earlier, the first time Kang Siwon walked into Brewhaven, I was arguing with the espresso machine. "Come on, don't do this to me. Not today." "Problems?" I looked up and forgot whatever I was about to say. He stood there in the doorway, backlit by September sunshine, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Dark, hair swept back, sharp features, and a suit that screamed money in a quiet, confident way. "Nothing I can't handle," I said, finally getting the machine to cooperate. "What can I get you?" He studied the menu board like it held the secrets of the universe. "What do you recommend?" "Depends. Are you a take risks kind of person or play it safe?" A smile tugged at his lips. "I'd like to think I take risks." "Then the honey lavender latte. It's weird, but it works. I'll trust you." As I made his drink, I felt his eyes on me. Not in a creepy way, but intense, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. "I'm Siwon," he said when I handed him the cup. "Brianna, enjoy your weird coffee." He laughed, and something in my chest did a little flip. No, absolutely not, I told myself. We're not doing this. He took a sip, his eyes widening. "This is incredible." "Told you to trust me." He pulled out his wallet, and I saw the flash of a black card before he handed me a 50 for a $6 drink. "Keep the change." "The change is $44. "I know." I counted out $44 and put it in his hand. "I don't take tips that are bigger than the actual order. But thanks." Confusion crossed his face, quickly replaced by intrigue. He pocketed the money, nodded once, and left. Jasmine materialized beside me. Did you just turn down a $44 tip? Yep. Why? Because nothing's free, Jazz, especially not from men who carry black cards and wear watches that cost more than my car. But he came back the next day, and the day after that, always ordering the honey lavender latte, trying to leave massive tips, and always looking at me like I was the most interesting thing in his world. On day 7, 3 dozen roses arrived at the shop. Deep red, absolutely gorgeous, with a card that read, "For the girl who won't take my money." "Maybe you'll take these instead," Jasmine squealed. The morning customers cooed. I stared at them like they were evidence of a crime. "What are you going to do?" Jasmine asked. I walked around the counter and started handing them out. 1 to the elderly woman who came in every morning for her decaf. 2 to the young mom with twins in a stroller. 3 to the college student who always looked stressed. "Brianna, what are you doing?" Jasmine hissed. "Spreading joy. Isn't that what flowers are for?" By the time Siwan walked in 20 minutes later, there wasn't a single rose left. His face went through several emotions: confusion, realization, and something that might have been admiration. "You gave them away." "They were too pretty to keep to myself." I started his latte without asking. "Besides, I'm allergic." "Are you really?" "No, but you don't know that." He leaned against the counter, and I caught a whiff of his cologne. Subtle and expensive. "Why won't you let me do something nice for you?" I stopped mid-pour and met his eyes. Really looked at him. There was genuine confusion there, like he honestly didn't understand. "You want to know why?" I set down the milk pitcher. When I was 7, my mama used to dress me up every Christmas Eve. We'd sit by the window, and she'd tell me that my father was coming, that this year would be different, that he promised. Siwan's expression softened. He never came, not once. But you know what he did send? Expensive gifts. Dolls I was too afraid to play with. Dresses I had nowhere to wear. Money that felt like hush money, like guilt wrapped in pretty paper. I finished his drink and slid it across. "So forgive me if I don't trust nice gestures from men who have everything." I walked to the back before he could respond, before he could see that my hands were shaking. I hadn't talked about my father in years, and definitely not to a customer I barely knew. When I came back out, Siwan was gone, but he'd left his untouched latte on the counter with a napkin underneath, written in neat handwriting. "I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm not him." 2 weeks later, Siwan walked in with a folder. The morning rush had just ended, and I was wiping down tables when he approached. "I have a proposition for you." "Not interested." "You haven't heard it yet." "Don't need to. The answer's no." He smiled like I'd said something amusing. "Brianna, just listen. I know you're taking online classes for art school. I know your car barely runs. I know you work doubles most weeks." Cold ran down my spine. "You've been checking up on me." "I pay attention. There's a difference." He opened the folder. "I want to pay for your education, full tuition, whatever school you want. And I'll get you a reliable car, nothing flashy, just something safe." The coffee shop went quiet. Everyone was listening now. "In exchange for what?" My voice came out harder than I intended. "Nothing, no strings. I just want to help." "Help?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to help. Here's how you can help. You can stop treating me like a project. Stop acting like I'm some charity case you can fix with your daddy's money. Stop thinking that every problem can be solved by throwing cash at it." His face flushed. "That's not what I'm doing." "Then what are you doing, Siwan? Why are you here every single day? Why the tips, the flowers, the background checks, the grand offers? What do you want from me?" The question hung in the air between us. The other customers weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. I want to know you, he said quietly. I want to take you to dinner. I want to hear about your art and your dreams and what makes you laugh. I want a chance. No, Brianna. No, I'm not for sale, not for tuition, not for a car, not for anything. I don't care how lonely you are or how much money you have. Find someone else to fix, someone else to save, someone else to make you feel good about yourself. I picked up the folder and handed it back. We're done here. I walked to the back room, my heart pounding so hard, I thought it might break through my ribs. I heard Jasmine apologizing to him, heard the door chime as he left, heard the customers burst into excited whispers. And I let myself cry for just a minute, because saying no to him felt like closing a door I didn't know I wanted to walk through. But I'd watched my mama wait behind a door that never opened, and I'd be damned if I made the same mistake. That evening, Siwan sat in his penthouse apartment, staring at the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows. His best friend, Taemin, sprawled on the leather couch, playing games on his phone. So let me get this straight, Taemin said without looking up. You offered to pay for her school, buy her a car, and she told you to get lost. Essentially, yes. Taemin laughed so hard he dropped his phone. Oh man, I like her already. It's not funny. It's hilarious. Do you know how many people would kill for what you just offered? Do you know how many women have literally thrown themselves at you? And this one girl, this coffee shop worker, looks at you and says, "No thanks?" Siwan rubbed his face. Every woman I've ever met wanted something. My name, my money, my connections. She wants nothing from me. I don't understand it. Maybe that's exactly why you're obsessed. I'm not obsessed. Dude, you've gone to the same coffee shop every day for 3 weeks. You memorized her schedule. You had someone look into her background. I tore up that report without reading it. After you paid for it. Taemin sat up. Look, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. This girl, Brianna, she's not playing hard to get. She's not trying to make you chase her. She genuinely doesn't want what you're offering. And that terrifies you, because you've never had to actually earn someone's affection before. Siwan wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Taemin was right. Everything in his life had been transactional. Business deals, arranged introductions, women who saw dollar signs before they saw him. But Brianna looked at him like he was just a man. An annoying, persistent man, but just a man nonetheless. So what do? You stop trying to buy her and start trying to know her. Real talk, real effort, real vulnerability. Can you do that? Siwan looked out at the city again. He'd built a company, closed billion-dollar deals, commanded boardrooms full of men twice his age. But sitting across from Brianna and being genuinely himself, that might be the scariest thing he'd ever attempted. 3 days later, Siwan was driving home from a late meeting when he saw her. Brianna stood beside her broken-down car on a side street, rain pouring down, phone pressed to her ear. He pulled over before he could think twice. Need help? She looked up, rain streaming down her face, and he saw her jaw tighten. I'm fine. Tow truck's coming. In this weather, that could take hours. Then I'll wait hours. He should have driven away, should have respected her clear desire to be left alone. But the rain was getting worse, and she was shivering despite her jacket. At least wait in my car where it's dry. No. Brianna, come on, you're going to get sick. I'd rather get pneumonia than owe you anything. The words stung more than they should have. He nodded, pulled his car into a parking spot 20 feet away, and turned off the engine. What are you doing? She called out. Waiting. For what? For your tow truck, making sure you're safe. I don't need you to do that. I know, I'm doing it anyway. They stayed like that for 2 hours, her standing in the rain, stubbornly refusing shelter. Him sitting in his car, refusing to leave. By the time the tow truck finally arrived, they were both soaked and miserable. As the truck driver loaded her car, Brianna walked to his window. He rolled it down. "You're an idiot," she said. "Probably. You didn't have to wait." "I know." Something in her expression softened just a fraction. "Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep showing up?" He wanted to say something smooth, something that would make her smile. But Taemin's words echoed in his head. Real vulnerability. "Because when I'm with you, I feel like a person, not a name, not a bank account, not the heir to anything. Just Siwon. And I haven't felt that way in a really long time." She stared at him for a long moment, rain dripping from her curls. Then she stepped back. "Good night, Siwon." "Good night, Brianna." He watched her get into the tow truck, watched it drive away, and sat there for 10 more minutes in his wetsuit, wondering why doing the right thing felt so much like losing. The next morning, Jasmine cornered Brianna in the storage room. "We need to talk. If this is about Siwon." "It's absolutely about Siwon. Bri, that man sat in the rain for 2 hours last night just to make sure you were safe. Do you know how rare that is? He probably wanted to feel like a hero. Or maybe he actually cares about you." Jasmine crossed her arms. "Look, I get it. I know what your mom went through. I know why you're scared, but you're punishing him for what another man did." "I'm protecting myself." "No, you're hiding. There's a difference." Jasmine softened her voice. "He shows up every single day. He doesn't push when you say no. He waited in the rain just to know you got home safe. When does consistency matter? When does someone get credit for proving they're different?" Brianna felt tears prick her eyes. "What if I let him in and he leaves? What if I'm just a phase, an interesting challenge, and once he figures me out, he moves on to the next thing? What if he doesn't? What if you're so busy protecting yourself from getting hurt that you miss out on something real? I don't know how to do this, Jazz. I don't know how to trust someone like him." "Then start small. Have a conversation that isn't about coffee orders. Let him see the real you, not just the walls you've built." A week passed with no sign of Siwon. Brianna told herself she was relieved, but she kept looking at the door during his usual times. On the 8th day, when she'd convinced herself he'd given up, he walked in wearing jeans and a plain white t-shirt. "You look different," she said before she could stop herself. "No suit. Took the bus. Just a guy getting coffee." He smiled, and it looked almost nervous. "Though I'd still like the honey lavender latte if you're offering." She made his drink, hyper-aware of his eyes on her. When she handed it to him, their fingers brushed, and she felt that stupid flutter again. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "And you can tell me to mind my business if you want." "Okay. What kind of art do you do?" It wasn't what she expected. Mostly paintings, abstract stuff, some portraits. "What inspires you?" And just like that, they were talking. Not about money or gestures or rejection, but about art and color theory and how she saw the world differently when she had a brush in her hand. He listened like every word mattered, asked questions that showed he was actually paying attention. "I'd love to see your work sometime," he said, "if you'd want to show me." Maybe. The word was out before she could think about it. "Maybe sometime." His whole face lit up. "Yeah? Don't make it weird. I'm going to try really hard not to." Over the next 2 weeks, it became routine. Siwon would come in. They'd talk while she worked. He told her about growing up in a mansion where the staff knew him better than his parents did. She told him about how she used to draw on napkins during her mom's long shifts as a nurse. He made terrible jokes that shouldn't have been funny, but somehow were. She found herself smiling more than she had in months. Jasmine watched it all with knowing eyes and didn't say a word. "There's a community art gallery showing next Friday," Siwon said casually one afternoon. "Local artists, free admission. I thought maybe you'd want to go, with me, if you're free." Brianna's heart did that annoying thing again. It was perfect, actually. Not a fancy museum or expensive restaurant. Just art and conversation. I don't know, Siwon. It's not a date if you don't want it to be. Just two people who like art, looking at art. She was about to say yes. The word was right there on her tongue. Then she noticed his watch. It had been hidden under his sleeve, but when he reached for his coffee, it caught the light. Expensive, elegant, a reminder of exactly who he was. All the walls slammed back into place. No, I can't. The hope in his eyes died. Brianna. You're a good guy, Siwon. I believe that. But we're from different worlds. You live in penthouses and wear watches that cost more than I make in a year. I'm working doubles to afford community college classes. This, she gestured between them. Whatever this is, it doesn't work in real life. It could if you'd let it. That's easy for you to say. You don't have anything to lose. You think I have nothing to lose? His voice rose slightly, frustration breaking through. You think it doesn't hurt every time you look at me like I'm the enemy? You think I don't go home wondering what I have to do to prove I'm not going to hurt you? You can't prove that. Nobody can. He stood there for a moment, jaw working, emotions warring across his face. Then he nodded once and left without his coffee. Brianna watched him go and told herself she'd done the right thing. So why did it feel like she'd just made a terrible mistake? 2 nights later, Siwon showed up 10 minutes before closing. The shop was empty, except for Brianna wiping down tables. We're about to close, she said quietly. I know, I just need 5 minutes. He sat at the counter, and she could see dark circles under his eyes. I can't sleep, haven't really slept in days, actually. And I keep playing our conversations over in my head, trying to figure out where I went wrong. Siwon, let me finish, please. He took a breath. You're right, we're from different worlds. I grew up with everything except the things that actually matter. My father was always at the office. My mother was always at charity events. I had nannies and tutors and drivers, but I didn't have parents. I had a trust fund, but not trust. I had everything money could buy and nothing it couldn't. Brianna stopped wiping and listened. When I was 12, I had a birthday party. My father hired entertainers, rented out a whole venue, invited 100 people, but he didn't come. He was closing a deal in Singapore. My mother came for 30 minutes, took photos for the society pages, and left. I sat there surrounded by kids from school who only came for the goodie bags, and I've never felt more alone. His voice cracked slightly. I'm 28 years old, and I run a company with thousands of employees, and I still feel like that 12-year-old kid sometimes, like I'm surrounded by people who see everything except me. Tears welled in Brianna's eyes. Then I walked into this coffee shop, and you looked at me like I was annoying. Not impressive, not useful, not worth sucking up to, just annoying. And somehow, that was the most real interaction I'd had in years. He met her eyes. I'm not trying to buy you, or save you, or make you a project. I just want someone to see me the way I see you, as a person, just a person trying to figure things out. Brianna's hands were shaking. Every instinct told her to run, to protect herself, to say no again. But Jasmine's words echoed. When does someone get credit for proving they're different? I'm scared, she admitted. I'm terrified that I'll let you in and you'll realize I'm not worth all this effort, that I'm just a girl who makes coffee and can't afford the life you're used to. And I'm terrified you'll never let me in, that I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what if. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their words settling between them. I can't promise I won't hurt you, Siwon said finally. I'm human, I'll mess up, but I can promise I'll never lie to you. I'll never make you wait for promises I don't intend to keep. And I'll never make you feel like you're not enough exactly as you are. Brianna wiped her eyes. I need time. I need to think. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. He stood to leave, and she watched him walk to the door. Just before he reached it, she called out, "Siwon?" He turned. "Thank you for telling me that. About your birthday. About everything." He smiled sadly. "Thank you for listening." 3 weeks later, everything changed. Brianna was scrolling through her phone during her break when Jasmine burst into the back room, tablet in hand. "You need to see this." It was a news article. Kang Siwon refuses arranged marriage alliance, causes family scandal. Brianna's stomach dropped as she read. Siwon's father had arranged for him to date Park Yuna, daughter of a major business partner. A marriage would have merged two of the biggest companies in the country. At a formal company dinner, in front of both families and dozens of executives, Siwon had publicly declined. "I appreciate the consideration," the article quoted him saying, "but I can't pursue this arrangement. I'm in love with someone else." The article continued with speculation about the mystery woman, the family fallout, and the potential business implications. "Oh no," Brianna whispered. "Oh yes," Jasmine said. "Girl, he just blew up his whole life for you." "I didn't ask him to do that." "Maybe not, but he did it anyway." Within hours, reporters were camped outside the coffee shop. Brianna's face appeared on gossip sites with headlines like "Mystery Woman Steals CEO's Heart" and "Who is Brianna Matthews?" She felt suffocated, exposed, exactly like she'd feared. This was why she'd said no. This circus, this invasion, this proof that their worlds could never really merge. Brianna called in sick the next day, hiding in her small apartment, while her phone blew up with messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Journalists, bloggers, even a few TV producers wanting her story. On the third day, she'd had enough. She got dressed, pulled her thick curls into a bun, and marched straight to Kang Industries headquarters. The lobby was all marble and glass and intimidating. The receptionist looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. "I need to see Kang Siwon." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but he'll want to see me. Tell him Brianna's here." 5 minutes later, she was in an elevator heading to the top floor. A secretary led her through a maze of offices to a conference room, where Siwon sat with a dozen people in suits, presentations on screens, papers everywhere. He looked up, and his eyes went wide. "Brianna." She didn't wait for permission. She walked right into that room, and every eye turned to her. "Can we have a moment?" Siwon said to his team. "But sir, the merger." "Now, please." The room cleared in seconds. When the door closed, Brianna let everything out. "What were you thinking? Do you have any idea what you've done? There are reporters outside my apartment. My picture is on gossip websites. Strangers are calling my phone asking if I'm the mystery woman who destroyed a business deal. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for... This is exactly why I said no. You people turn everything into a circus. You can't just live normal lives. Everything has to be a headline, a merger, a deal, a scandal." Tears of frustration streamed down her face. "I wanted a simple life, Siwon. I wanted to make my art and work my job and not have cameras in my face. You can't give me that. Your world doesn't allow for that." He stood there, taking it all, not defending himself. "I can't do this. I can't be the mystery woman. I can't be your rebellion against your father, or your proof that you're different from your family. I can't be part of this world." She backed toward the door. "Stay away from me, please. Just let me go back to being nobody." She left before he could respond, practically running through the office, ignoring the stares from employees who'd definitely seen her picture online. She made it to the elevator, to the lobby, to the street before she finally let herself break down. But what she didn't see was Siwon standing at his office window, 20 floors up, watching her disappear into the crowd, his own face wet with tears. He hadn't cried since he was 12 years old. For 2 weeks, Siwan honored her request. He didn't go to the coffee shop. He didn't call or text. He threw himself into work, barely eating, barely sleeping, trying to convince himself he'd done everything he could. His father called him into his office, disappointment radiating from every pore. "You embarrassed this family." I was honest. "You were selfish. You put your personal feelings above the company, above your responsibilities, above everything we've built." "Maybe that's because I'm tired of being a piece on your chessboard." Siwan's voice was steady despite the anger coursing through him. "I'm 28 years old, and I've spent my entire life doing what you wanted. The right schools, the right major, the right job, the right friends. When do I get to make my own choices? When your choices don't cost us millions in lost opportunities." The park deal would have gone through with or without the marriage arrangement. You know that. Yuna knows that. This was never about business. It was about control. His father's jaw tightened. That girl from the coffee shop, is she worth all this? Siwan thought about Brianna's laugh when he told terrible jokes, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about art, how she saw him, really saw him, past all the money and status. "Yes," he said simply. "She is. Then you're a fool." "Maybe, but at least I'm a fool who knows what matters." He left his father's office feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. He'd finally stood up for what he wanted, but what he wanted didn't want him back. Taemin found him that night in his penthouse, staring at nothing. "You look terrible." "Thanks. I mean it. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't delivered by an assistant?" Siwan didn't answer. "She really got to you, huh?" "I hurt her. I did exactly what she was afraid I'd do. I brought chaos into her life, exposed her to scrutiny she never wanted, proved that our worlds don't mix. So what are you going to do about it?" "What can I do? She asked me to leave her alone, so I am." Taemin shook his head. "You know what your problem is. You're still thinking about this like a business deal. You messed up, so you retreat. Cut your losses. Move on. But that's not how relationships work, man. You fight for what matters. You show up. You prove you're serious." "She doesn't want me to show up. She doesn't want the circus. She doesn't want the media. She doesn't want her life turned upside down. But maybe, just maybe, she still wants you. The real you. Not CEO Kang Siwan with the headlines and the scandals. Just Siwan. The guy who waited in the rain, who listened to her talk about art, who made her laugh despite herself." Siwan looked at his friend. "What if I show up and she rejects me again? Then at least you'll know you tried everything, but giving up because you're scared. That's not the guy who turned down an arranged marriage in front of his entire company. That guy had courage. Find him again." 2 weeks later, Siwan's father forced him to attend the annual Kang Industries charity gala. 500 people, all the major families, business partners, and society elite. His father had also invited Park Yuna as his date, a not-so-subtle message about second chances. Siwan went through the motions, shaking hands, making small talk, feeling hollower by the minute. Yuna was perfectly pleasant, perfectly polished, perfectly wrong. Every conversation reminded him of what he'd lost, what he'd ruined. What he didn't know was that the event organizers had also invited local artists to display their work, hoping to bridge corporate wealth with community art. And Brianna, needing the exposure and the potential sales, had reluctantly agreed to show 3 of her paintings. She'd convinced herself she could do this. Set up her pieces, smile at potential buyers, avoid the main event. But an hour into the evening, she saw him across the gallery space, laughing with Yuna, surrounded by people in clothes that cost more than her rent. And something in her chest cracked, because he looked fine. He looked like he'd moved on, like their whole messy situation had been just a blip in his carefully curated life. She told herself she was relieved, told herself this was proof she'd been right to push him away. She was packing up her unsold paintings, ready to leave early, when she heard her name. Siwon stood a few feet away, Yuna on his arm. 3 people she didn't know watching the interaction with interest. Siwon, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Brianna, I didn't know you'd be here. Yeah, well, apparently my art was local enough to qualify. Awkward silence stretched between them. Yuna looked between them with polite confusion. The others waited for him to explain. Everyone, this is Brianna. She works at Brewhaven, the coffee shop near my office. The coffee shop. Not the woman I love, not the person who matters, just the girl from the coffee shop. Something inside Brianna froze, then shattered. Right, just the coffee girl. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Congratulations on everything. You two look great together. She turned back to her paintings, hands shaking, willing them to leave. After a moment, she heard their footsteps fade away, heard Siwon's voice mixing with the crowd, heard the party continue like nothing had happened. Tears blurred her vision as she wrapped her paintings. She'd been right all along. She was just a phase, an interesting diversion. Now that the scandal had died down, he could go back to his real life with appropriate people like Yuna. She told herself it didn't hurt, but it did. God, it hurt. 30 minutes later, Siwon stood at the microphone, supposed to give his annual speech about corporate responsibility and giving back to the community. The words were written, vetted, perfect. He just had to read them. But as he looked out at the sea of faces, all he could see was Brianna's expression when he had called her the girl from the coffee shop. The hurt she'd tried to hide, the way she'd shut down right in front of him. He'd done it to protect himself, to prove to his father and Yuna and everyone watching that he'd moved on, to show that he could be the CEO they expected him to be, to rebuild the walls he'd torn down, and in doing so, he'd become exactly what Brianna feared he was, a man who could dismiss her, a man who could pretend she meant nothing. He started reading the speech, got 3 sentences in. Then he saw her at the back of the room, carrying her paintings toward the exit, trying to leave quietly without drawing attention. Something in him shattered. His voice cracked mid-sentence. He stopped reading. 500 people stared at him in confused silence. I'm sorry, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Then louder. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't stand here and talk about responsibility and integrity when I just did the most irresponsible, cowardly thing I've ever done. His father stood up from his table, face darkening. Yuna looked mortified. Taemin, somewhere in the crowd, was grinning. 30 minutes ago, the woman I love was standing in this room, and I called her the girl from the coffee shop. Like she was nobody. Like she didn't matter. Like these past months haven't been the most real thing in my entire life. Tears started streaming down his face, and he didn't bother to wipe them away. I did it because I was scared, because it's easier to pretend I don't care than to admit how much I hurt her, how badly I messed up. Brianna had frozen at the exit, her paintings clutched to her chest. Brianna taught me that not everything can be bought, that showing up matters, that consistency matters, that being real matters more than being perfect. His voice broke completely. And then I brought chaos into her life. I exposed her to scrutiny she never wanted. I proved every fear she had about my world was right. And when she asked me to leave her alone, I did, because I thought that's what loving someone meant, giving them what they ask for. He wiped his face with his sleeve, not caring about the 500 people watching him fall apart. But I was wrong. Love isn't just respecting boundaries. It's fighting for what matters. It's showing up even when it's hard. It's being vulnerable, even when it's terrifying. He looked directly at Brianna now. You were right about everything. My world is a circus. It's complicated and messy, and full of people who think everything has a price. But I don't care about any of that. I care about you, and I'm done pretending I don't. The room was dead silent. His father had his head in his hands. Yuna had slipped away from the table. Every phone in the room was probably recording. I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I've proven I'm exactly what you were afraid I was. But I love you, Brianna Matthews. I love your art and your strength and the way you see through all my bullshit. I love that you make me want to be better. I love that you don't need me, but God, I need you. He was openly sobbing now, and he didn't care. So I'm here, in front of everyone, making a complete fool of myself, because you're worth it. You're worth all of it. He stepped away from the microphone, walked off the stage, and kept walking straight through the crowd toward the exit. People parted like water. He didn't stop until he was outside the venue, sitting on the curb in his $1,000 suit, face in his hands, everything he'd been holding in for weeks pouring out. He didn't hear her approach, didn't know she was there until she sat down beside him on that curb, her paintings set carefully aside. They sat in silence for a full minute, just breathing, just being. "You really know how to make an exit," she finally said. He laughed through his tears. "I learned from the best. You stormed my board meeting, remember?" That was different. I was angry. So was I, at myself, at my father, at the whole world for making everything so complicated. Another stretch of silence. A valet gave them a weird look and hurried past. "You called me the girl from the coffee shop," Brianna said quietly. "I know. I was trying to protect myself, trying to prove I could fit into this world without you. But I can't, Bri. I don't want to. You cried in front of everyone." "Yeah. Your makeup's all messed up." "I'm not wearing makeup." "I know. Your face is just a mess." But she was almost smiling. "That was the ugliest cry I've ever seen. Jasmine told you about that." "What?" "Nothing." He turned to really look at her. "I'm sorry. For tonight. For the media circus. For all of it. You deserved better." "Yeah, I did. I don't know how to make this work. Our worlds really are different. But I want to try, if you'll let me." Brianna studied his face. The tears, the vulnerability, the complete lack of the polished CEO persona. This was just Saiwan, broken and honest and terrified. "I saw you with Yuna tonight," she admitted, "before you called me the coffee girl. And I thought, there he is with someone from his world, someone who fits, someone who knows which fork to use and what to wear, and how to navigate all of this." She gestured at the venue. "And I thought maybe you were better off. I was miserable. I know, I could see it. But I'd convinced myself you'd be happier once you forgot about me." "That's not possible." She felt tears threatening. "When you cried up there, when you fell apart in front of everyone, that's when I really saw you. Not CEO Kang Siwon, just Siwon. Scared and real and willing to risk everything. I meant every word." "I know." She took a shaky breath. "I'm still scared. Your world still terrifies me. But watching you walk away tonight, I realized I'm more scared of not trying than I am of getting hurt." Hope bloomed across his face. "Yeah? Yeah, but we're doing this my way. No grand gestures, no media, no trying to buy me things to prove you care. Just us, figuring it out, one day at a time. Anything, whatever you want. And if it doesn't work, then at least we'll know we tried. But Bri?" He took her hand carefully, like she might disappear. "I think it's going to work." She looked at their intertwined fingers. His, always so carefully maintained. Hers, usually stained with paint. Different worlds, different lives, but somehow fitting together. "Want to get out of here?" she asked. "There's a 24-hour diner 3 blocks away. Best pancakes in the city." "Not the after party." "Definitely not the after party." They stood up, and Sawan grabbed her paintings. "I never got to see these up close. They're just abstract stuff. emotions in color. They're incredible, just like you. Okay, that was cheesy. I know, I'm going to be cheesy sometimes. Fair warning. They started walking, leaving the gala behind, leaving the spectacle and the scandal and the expectations. Just two people heading to a diner, starting over. Your father's going to kill you, Brianna said. Probably. Was it worth it? Siwan looked at her, this woman who'd rejected him over and over until he'd learned to be worthy of a yes, and smiled. Absolutely. The Red Star Diner was everything the charity gala wasn't. Cracked vinyl booths, fluorescent lights, a waitress named Dolores who called everyone Han and didn't care who you were. Siwan had never been anywhere like it. This is perfect, he said, meaning it. They ordered coffee and pancakes and talked, really talked, not about money or status or fear, but about real things. Brianna told him about the painting she was working on, how she was trying to capture the feeling of hope and terror existing in the same moment. He told her about a project at work he actually cared about, funding programs for underprivileged kids, interested in business. That's amazing, she said. Why didn't you tell me about that before? I don't know. I guess I thought you'd think I was showing off or trying to impress you. Siwan, doing good work isn't showing off. It's just being a decent human. I'm still learning how to do that. Be a regular person, I mean. You're doing okay so far. She stole a bite of his pancakes. Though your table manners are terrible. He stole a bite of hers in retaliation. Learning from the best. Dolores refilled their coffee, gave them a knowing look, and shuffled away. Can I ask you something? Siwan said. What made you come outside tonight? After everything I said, you could have just left. Brianna traced patterns in the condensation on her water glass. When you started crying, I saw my mom. Not because you're like her, but because I finally understood what she felt. She loved someone who couldn't choose her. But you, standing up there in front of everyone who matters in your world, you chose me. Loudly and publicly. Without hesitation. I should have done it sooner. Maybe. But maybe we both needed to fall apart first. I needed to see you vulnerable. You needed to stop trying to be perfect. Sometimes things break so they can heal properly. They stayed until sunrise, watching the city wake up through the diner windows, talking about everything and nothing. When they finally stepped outside, Brianna shivered in the early morning air. Siwon offered his jacket. Isn't that like a classic romantic gesture? She teased, but took it anyway. I'm going to do a lot of classic romantic gestures. You should prepare yourself. As long as they don't cost thousands of dollars, I can handle it. He hailed her a cab, paid the driver, and then stepped back before she could protest. Can I see you tomorrow? He asked. Or today, technically. Later today. I work the morning shift. I know, I'll be there. Siwan, you don't have to come to the coffee shop every day anymore. You proved your point. It's not about proving anything. I like being there. I like watching you work. I like our conversations. I like the terrible music you play. Is that okay? She smiled, genuine and warm. Yeah, that's okay. The next morning, Siwan showed up at Brew Haven during the breakfast rush. No suit, just jeans and a hoodie. He, chabbed, waited in line like everyone else, ordered his honey lavender latte, and sat at the counter doing work on his laptop. Jasmine nearly dropped a pitcher of milk. Is this real life? Apparently, Brianna said, trying not to smile too wide. Between customers, she and Siwan talked. Nothing deep, just easy conversation. He made her laugh with a story about his assistant's confusion when he'd asked for restaurant recommendations under $20. She told him about a customer who'd tried to pay for coffee with a poem. It felt normal, different from before, because now there was no pretense, no game, no walls. Just two people who liked each other, figuring out how to exist in the same space. Over the next week, they fell into a rhythm. He'd come to the coffee shop, sometimes staying for hours, sometimes just grabbing a drink and leaving with a smile. They had their first official date at a painting class in a community center. Siwon was terrible at art. "I think your tree looks drunk," Brianna said, barely containing her laughter. "Trees can be drunk. Maybe it ate fermented apples." "That's not how trees work." "You don't know. You're not a tree." She laughed so hard she got paint on her face, and he reached over to wipe it off without thinking. And they both froze as his thumb brushed her cheek. Then she kissed him, right there in front of a dozen strangers and their terrible paintings. And it was perfect. 3 months in, Siwon's father demanded to meet Brianna. The summons came through his assistant, formal and cold. Brianna wanted to refuse, but Siwon assured her it would be okay. "He just needs to see that you're real, that this isn't a phase. What if he hates me?" "Then he hates me too, because we're a package deal now." They met at the Kong family home, a sprawling estate that made Brianna's stomach clench with anxiety. She'd worn jeans and a nice top, refusing to dress like someone she wasn't. Siwon's father sat in a study that looked like it belonged in a museum. He studied Brianna with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "So you're the woman who turned my son into a spectacle. With all due respect, Mr. Kong, your son made his own choices. Choices that cost this family millions in potential partnerships. Partnerships built on arranged marriages and business deals instead of actual compatibility. Yeah, I guess I did cost you that." Brianna felt Siwon tense beside her, but kept going. "I don't want your son's money. I don't want his name or his status or his connections. I want his Tuesday mornings when he's half asleep and makes terrible jokes. I want his honest thoughts about the world. I want the person he is when no one's watching, when there's no deal to close or impression to make." Mr. Kang's expression didn't change. "And what makes you think you're good enough for that?" "I don't think I'm good enough. I think we're figuring it out together. But here's what I know. I see him. Not CEO Kang Siwon. Not the heir to your empire. Not a name in a business journal. Just Siwon. And he sees me the same way. If that's not enough for you, if you need someone who fits into your world perfectly and knows all the rules and never causes problems, then that's your loss, not mine. Because your son is the best person I know, and he deserves to be with someone who loves him for who he is, not what he has." Silence filled the study. Siwon's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. Then, impossibly, Mr. Kang smiled. Just slightly, but definitely a smile. "You have courage, and you're not intimidated by money or status. Those are rare qualities." He leaned back in his chair. "I don't have to like this situation. I don't have to approve of how it happened. But I can see that my son is happier than he's been in years. That counts for something." "Does that mean," Siwon started, "it means I'm not going to stand in your way." But he fixed Brianna with a stern look. "If you hurt him, money and status won't protect you from me." "Fair enough. Same goes for you if he hurts me." Mr. Kang actually laughed. "I think I'm beginning to understand what he sees in you." They left an hour later, Brianna's hands still shaking with adrenaline. "You threatened my father," Siwon said, sounding odd. "He threatened me first." "You're incredible." "I'm terrified. I need pancakes." Diner. 1 year later, Brianna stood behind the counter at Brew Haven, making a honey lavender latte without needing to ask who it was for. Siwon sat at his usual spot, papers spread out, occasionally looking up to catch her eye and smile. It had been a year since that night at the gala, a year of figuring out how to merge their worlds without losing themselves. They'd had fights about his tendency to solve problems with money, about her stubborn refusal to let him help even when she needed it. They'd learned to compromise, to communicate, to choose each other every single day. Brianna had enrolled in art school, paid for with a combination of her savings, scholarships, and a grant program Siwon's company funded, but had nothing to do with selecting recipients for. Siwon had started spending less time at the office and more time on projects that actually mattered to him. His father had slowly warmed to Brianna, especially after she'd refused to be seated in the family box at a charity event, insisting on sitting with the regular attendees. She keeps him humble, he'd told Taemin. That's valuable. Now, a year later, everything felt both completely different and exactly the same. Jasmine still worked beside her, though she'd been right about everything. Siwon still came in every day, still ordered the same drink, still looked at her like she was the best part of his day. She brought his latte over, and he pulled her into the seat beside him. "Remember when you used to write Simon on my cups?" he asked. "You were annoying. I was persistent. Same thing." He laughed and pulled something from his pocket. A napkin, old and worn, preserved in a plastic sleeve. She recognized it immediately, the one he'd left under his coffee the day she'd told him about her father. "I've kept this for over a year," he said, as a reminder that sometimes the right people come into your life in the most unexpected ways. And sometimes you have to fall apart completely before you can become who you're supposed to be. That's very philosophical for a Tuesday morning. I have a question for you. He set the napkin down and took both her hands. What made you finally say yes? That night at the diner, after everything, what changed your mind? She'd known this question was coming eventually, had thought about the answer countless times. You cried, she said simply. Not to manipulate me or get sympathy or prove a point. You cried because you couldn't hold it together anymore. You chose vulnerability over pride. You chose real over perfect. And that's when I really saw you for the first time. Not the CEO, not the rich boy trying to win me over. Just Siwon. Broken and honest and brave enough to fall apart in front of everyone. Best ugly cry of my life, he joked, but his eyes were serious. Real love showed up when you stopped trying to buy it, she continued. When you stopped trying to impress me and started just being yourself. When you waited in the rain, not because you thought it would win you points, but because you genuinely cared if I was safe. When you chose me over your father's approval, over business deals, over everything that was supposed to matter in your world. You matter more than all of it. I know that now, and you know what? You were worth the risk. We were worth the risk. Jasmine cleared her throat loudly from across the shop. Are you two going to make me cry during the breakfast rush? Because I have mascara on. They laughed, and Siwon stood to leave, work calling. But at the door, he turned back. Hey, Brianna. Yeah? Thanks for giving me a chance. Thanks for seeing me. Thanks for being worth seeing. He left, and she watched him go. This man who'd walked into her coffee shop over a year ago and changed everything. This man who'd learned that love couldn't be bought, but had to be earned, day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. Her phone buzzed. A text from him. Dinner tonight? That terrible noodle place you love? She smiled and typed back. It's a date. Your treat? Always, but only because the noodles are $8 and you'd get mad if I tried to take you somewhere expensive. You're learning. I have a good teacher. Brianna pocketed her phone and went back to making coffee, humming along to the terrible music. Her thick curls pulled back in a messy bun, paint stains still on her fingers from last night's work session. Just a girl making coffee, loving a boy who'd learned to be real, building a life that was theirs and no one else's. And that was more than enough. That was everything. So what do you think? Sometimes the person we push away the most is exactly who we need. Sometimes we have to watch someone completely fall apart to see their true heart. Brianna almost let fear and past wounds rob her of real love. And Sawan had to learn that vulnerability, not wealth, opens hearts. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us what really matters in life. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever rejected someone because you were scared, only to realize later they were worth the risk? Or maybe you've been the one crying in public, heart on your sleeve, hoping for just one chance. I read every single comment, and your stories inspire the content I create. Until next time, remember that real love can't be bought, only built, one honest moment at a time. I'll see you in the next story.